What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone, we got John Campbell from the Almighty Lamb of God. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. I appreciate you giving me a ring.
Yeah, of course. It's so awesome to have you here. The new self-titled album is scheduled to come out on June 19th now. What I'm curious about is these new singles that were just released, New Colossal Hate and Memento Mori and Checkmate. Could this serve as like a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is it a little bit more diverse in a way?
That's a great question. I hadn't stopped to look at it from that perspective. I think it's. I think those three songs, there's some diversity, especially with Memento Mori in there. But I think they're fairly representational of what's coming on the record. There's some guest spots and a few little tricks and twists that we try out, like we do on every record, trying out new different things. But it's a self-titled record. We're Lamb of God, and this is a statement of who we are. So you can expect to hear songs that sound like Lamb of God when you push play.
Yeah. Well, and this could just me being, a big fan of you guys, but like if you played me like 30 seconds of a song, I could tell that that's off of Sacrament, that's off of Ashes of the Wake, that's off of Wrath, etc. Right. So do you take a new approach to every single album, or is there kind of like a formula in the Lamb of God writing process?
There's definitely a process that we go by, but it's not the creativity part is what's different every time. It's still Mark and Willie are our main songwriters, and they'll demo stuff at home. Then we get together with those things as a group and hammer through them and pick out which ones we think work the best, and try and make them the best songs possible. And then I go and take those into the studio.
Okay.
What we do try and do is we want to do better than we did the last record. We're always trying to outdo ourselves and stretch in some new way with some new little twist of some sort, and I think that we have continued to do that with this record.
Yeah, is it fair to say that maybe like almost when you compare like New American Gospel to now, is it almost kind of like a self-portrait in a way, like representative of who you and Randy and Willie and everybody were at that like particular time in a way?
Absolutely. I mean, we're putting ourselves into this project. This is our lives that we're committing to this. So yeah, it is exactly that, a self-portrait. Each record is us trying to shine as brightly as we can. And I feel like with each record we've gotten more experience and grown as people, and that is reflected in those records.
That's awesome. And what I find unique is you mentioned that there's some guest spots on here. I know that collaborating with Jamie Josta, and you're collaborating with Chuck Billy, and I know that on the last album you collaborated with Chino from Deftones, and you collaborated with Craig Pucciato from Dillinger Escape Plan. Does collaborating with other artists bring in some newer elements into Lamb of God, like on how maybe you could, do you maybe adjust your instrument playing to that as well?
No, I think we are bringing ourselves and bringing in it's like bringing in a guest color on a palette. The tone of the voice, the different singers or vocalists that we'll bring in, just are kind of a different texture to throw in on top of what is Lamb of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and does it also though maybe teach you a thing or two as well? Like, does it maybe open your ideas? Because I thought that the last album was actually fairly experimental. Like, I never would have thought that I would have heard something like Embers or Torches or
right.
So like it almost seems like maybe experimenting a little bit, it opens up new ideas on how you adjust your instrument playing, right?
Well, for instance, Chino coming in, we had the song written. I don't know if we already recorded it. When I think it was Mark saying, "Man, this has such a '90s feel to it. Like Chino would be amazing on this." So it was the music came together first, and then it was like, "Holy shit, this is something that would be perfect to throw a texture like Chino on." Mm-hmm. And that's how that happened. It's always the music comes first, and then the textures and layers are added after.
Yeah. Now, being a bass player, because I always thought that bass is such an important instrument, and it has both an emphasis on rhythm and melody as well. Do you sometimes prefer to have like drums laid down before you start laying down your parts, or do you like to prefer to play along with like Mark and Willie's melody and the guitar playing? Like, at what point in the songwriting process is it you coming in?
I tend to start by following more closely to Willie and Mark. And then as the songs come together and patterns start to develop, that's when things will start to switch up. Like, oh well, no, that's the perfect time to lock into the kick drum or to do this weird little chug or something. So generally speaking, it starts with the very basic melody, the song, for me, and then it develops as the songs grow into what the final approach of the bass will be.
Yeah. Now, every time, like, I notice a band puts out a self-titled album, especially within their career, like in the middle of their career, it almost seems like it represents almost like kind of a change in a way. Like, we've seen it with Metallica, we've seen it with like Suicide Silence and stuff. Is there a specific reason why this is particularly self-titled?
I just think that it's a time for a bold statement as to who we are as Lamb of God, and this record is that statement, and we felt like that this was the perfect time to do so.
Yeah. Now, as somebody who has seen Lamb of God live so many times, most recently was at Sonic Temple almost a year ago. But every time I see you live, it's always a completely different experience watching you play versus simply listening to you. But is there maybe a similar creative energy into your live presence as you are when you're songwriting, or is playing live and songwriting almost a completely separate art altogether?
They are almost a completely separate art altogether. You still need to be able to project passion and energy when you're in the studio, but that's more of an effort than when you're on stage with a bunch of people validating you and wanting you to play these songs. It's a completely different beast.
Yeah. And like on top of that, I've also seen you play with like a variety of different bands. Like one minute I'm seeing you with Killswitch Engage, and then I'm seeing you play with Anthrax, and then the next minute I'm with Slayer, and playing with so many different bands along the periodic table of metal subgenres. Do you notice maybe different types of audiences depending on like the tours that you're on?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I can for our very first real tour, we were going out with Gwar, and we were, I don't want to say scared, but we knew that Gwar fans were could be vicious, and we didn't want to give them a chance to respond in any way. So what we started doing was, all right, we're going to go out there and we're going to play 3 fucking songs without stopping. Don't give them a fucking chance to say shit. And after those 3 songs, if they're going to boo and yell shit at us, then fucking fine, let it be. And thankfully, we'd knock out 3 songs, and people would be like, "Holy shit, that was great!" But the different crowds you get, bands like Slayer and Gwar, whose fans are very much there. Oh, and Kiss. Holy shit, have we bummed out some Kiss fans before? And even back when, it's been a while now, when we toured with Metallica in 2009 and 2010, some of their fans were less than receptive. But to me, that's great. I love that. That's attention to work with, and I consider myself very lucky, whether people are into it or not, to be up on stage performing for a living.
Yeah, you got to like go way outside the box now. Do a tour with like Celine Dion or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know. Some of those ballads they do also like blast beats as well. Yeah. Now, one thing I was really curious about is like when it comes to like kind of going back to like the live presence as well. Do you try to almost replicate the music exactly how people are hearing it on the album, or do you try to like mix things up a little bit here and there in a way?
For the most part, we're trying to perform the songs as we put them down in the studio, but songs kind of morph and develop live, and sometimes different parts or hits will move away from where they were in the studio. There are also moments that we have in some songs where, okay, we can hit this point and then just kind of hold until Willie, Randy, somebody will give the cue that we're moving on to the next part, which is something you can do live, which obviously not in the studio. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, when we play, we're trying to play that track to studio perfection live.
Yeah, I remember 512 was actually the first song I've ever crowd surfed to in my life, and I remember just from that altitude, I was like able to hear. I thought maybe like the tuning was a little different or something like that, or if you adjust the tuning live or something like that.
No, I mean, it's very possible that somebody was out of tune a little bit, but no, generally speaking, we have multiple tunings on stage, so if a song was recorded in drop C, we're going to have a drop C set up there for us to play.
Yeah. Now, kind of going back to the album, being that it was 5 years since Storm und Drang, like, did this feel almost also like a fresh start, or did it also kind of maybe feel like you were just continuing where you left off?
I mean, it felt like continuing where we left off. It's there's no schedule for when these things happen. It's just as life comes at you and opportunities and things make sense. I didn't even realize it had been that long since we put the record out when it came around to it. And we honestly had been trying to get off the road to write this record, and Slayer kept coming to us going, "Hey, we want to do this tour. It's our final tour. What do you guys think?" Like, oh, fuck. All right.
Yeah, and they kept it going on for longer. It wasn't like the first leg of it with you guys, Slayer, Behemoth, Anthrax, and Testament. Wasn't that originally supposed to be the only leg, and then they added the second one with Napalm Death, and then
I don't know how much of it was planned or not, but I'm sure they were kind of feeling it out as it went. But yeah, they definitely we're going to tour to this point, and then they'd come to us and go, "Hey, we're thinking about adding this territory and going here. What do you guys think?"
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be awesome. Like, and that kind of, I know you guys have been asked this probably so many times. I didn't though, so it's okay. But going, that was a moment of musical history for the final run of Slayer. I mean, I know it's a very cliche question to ask, but like, how does it feel to almost like, be supporting a band who, has been touring for so many years, and, they're delivering their final nail in the heavy metal coffin? Like, what was kind of like going in your mind with that in a way? Like, how do you look back at that period of time with Slayer?
That was amazing. It was an honor to be out with those guys, and to see them in top form going out was incredible. They killed it. Their production, their playing, their set lists, it was great. It made me very happy to be part of that, and also to have the thoughts of myself like, holy shit, these guys are nailing it. If we can get to that point when we're ready to be done, that would be great.
Yeah, I was really intrigued.
And how about the time? How about the timing on Slayer?
Yeah,
they quit touring and then the world ends. I mean, they couldn't have picked a better time.
Yeah, I know, right? I think there's some correlation involved in there. I don't like conspiracy theories, but I'm just saying, I think God really hates us all at the moment.
And Kerry King sitting at home with his snakes just laughing.
Yeah. Very true. And, I was also, by that tour, I was intrigued by your production and your stage setup as well. Was Ken Adams doing the artwork for that in the background as well?
Holy shit, you're going to make me try and remember what we had production-wise on that tour. What the hell was it the backdrop that was up?
Yeah.
I think we did a couple different versions on the different legs. Ken Adams has done all of the artwork on our records forever. So if it's album artwork that's up there, then it is something that Ken Adams put together for the record and then probably manipulated to fit appropriately on a backdrop.
Yeah, I actually I mentioned Ken Adams in my college thesis when I was in art school, actually, and like, when he when you send him the music first before he lays down the album artwork as well, or and he needs a vision, he needs your music in order to come up with a vision?
He gets concepts of lyrics and direction and what kind of the theme of the record is, and then he goes from there and starts dreaming up stuff and sending us preliminary sketches, asking us what we think, and it moves along from there.
Yeah, the artwork for this new album is absolutely phenomenal. That was like the first thing that intrigued me before I even heard the single.
Right on. And then we had the singles. I'm incredibly proud of the 3 songs that have come out. I'm very happy that, despite being in this shitty quarantine situation we're all in, that we have this new music, which is probably one of the most exciting things next to playing a massive festival, is when you're putting out a new record and you're sitting there waiting to unleash it on the world, and then you get to watch the reaction.
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of artists now I know are using this time in quarantine though to kind of like write new music and stuff like that. It's got to suck that you have the album done and then the world ends.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, maybe our next record will come out in another 6 months.
Oh, well, that would be phenomenal. May I just say?
I disagree. I want to go out and tour on this record,
Well,
and I don't think the touring's going to be happening to the level I would like on this album cycle for a little bit.
yeah. Well, never say never. We could always hope for a miracle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
I am.
Yeah. All right. Going back to the songwriting process, I stumble every artist with this. How do you know when a song is done?
That's a great question because you can work on songs forever, especially in the day and age of digital recording. You have the power to do so much shit. How do you know when the song is done? Oh, sometimes maybe it's not, and it's just time's up, and you've got this. I don't know. You got me. I don't know when you know when a song is done. You could always add more, but maybe more is overkill. I don't know. That's a great question. I'm going to be thinking about this question quite a bit.
Oh, yes, I could smell the smoke coming out of your ears from over here.
Careful, that shit's illegal here.
And I have 2 more questions for you. But I know that, like, you guys, obviously everybody calls you a heavy metal band, but I know that you guys really cut your teeth in the realm of punk rock and hardcore. And I really thought that your punk and hardcore roots really shined through on the Burn the Priest covers album that you put out in 2018. I'm just curious, starting off with, like, a punk rock background with you and everybody else, how it kind of morphed into the style that you have now.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. We just lived our lives, wanted to be a heavy metal band. The reason that we came up in the punk hardcore world is because the heavy metal world was, for the most part, pretty dead at the hands of Nirvana. And when we started, calling yourself a metal band was the last thing that you would want to do. There was a Maximum Rock and Roll put out a magazine called Book Your Own Fucking Life, and it was a directory of people around the country and around the world who were open to having people come play shows at their house. So we would try and set up tours, call these people up and say, hey, we're a metal band. We want to come play your house. And like, no, never mind. Don't worry about it. And we call the same number back a couple of weeks later and say, hey, we're a punk metal band and we want to come play your house. Oh, man, send me a tape. So, how we morphed from that to where we are now is an interesting story that I don't even really know the details of, but somehow heavy metal went from being a bad word to being cool.
Yeah. Well, I never understood, and maybe you could actually help me with this. As a music journalist, it's almost sacrilege for even me to say this out loud. I never understood how metal and hardcore was so different from each other. They're both very honest, aggressive, in-your-face forms of music. I never understood how an Agnostic Front fan couldn't appreciate like Metallica or something like that, and vice versa.
If you don't mind asking a personal question, how old are you?
I'm 26.
Okay, so back when I was a kid, younger than yourself, heavy metal and punk were like, there was a line drawn. And if you like metal, you didn't listen to punk. If you like punk, fuck metal. And there was a band, DRI, I think, had a record called Crossover, and Suicidal Tendencies started going heavier with metal. And there was this moment in time where they just kind of came crashing together and eventually got down with each other. And I think now people can appreciate both sides of that spectrum. But back when we were kids, that was like oil and water. They did not mix.
I mean, it's sort of, I guess being, a millennial, I grew up with like metalcore bands, so I guess I was able to appreciate the other ends of the spectrum because they bridged the two together. But
sure.
So maybe that's what it was. To this day though, like I never understood like Agnostic Front and Cro-Mags and Sick of It All and Metallica and Slayer. I think they're both equally aggressive.
Why weren't they all buddies? Yeah, they totally are.
Yeah.
I think the difference being is in heavy metal, talent trumps passion, and it's the opposite in punk rock.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. I just love hearing like stories of like, the stereotypical Brooklyn hardcore. Back in my day, in the days of New York City hardcore, we had this crossover band called Life of Agony, and they put out River Runs Red. And so, or,
That's great, man. I love it. It's we've had some few moments to be able, as a band, to run around with the New York hardcore scene. And I fucking love that city, and I love that accent, and I love that attitude.
Yeah. My friends in Inhuman, I think, opened for you guys when you were still called Burn the Priest, which was he told me that was one of the craziest like basement shows they've ever played or something like that.
Yeah, man, we've got a few under our belts, and thankfully we weren't the only ones there. It was crazy times to live through.
Yep. And the final question I wanted to ask you actually is coming from Richmond, Virginia, because somebody once said that you guys are the big four of Richmond metal, like along with you guys, Guar, Municipal Waste, maybe Inner Armor or whatever. And I know Guar claims that they're not from Richmond, but they're from Planet Scumdogia. But was there kind of when you guys started a scene in Richmond that you were affiliated with, or was the goal to actually go outside your state lines more in order to get Lamb of God's name out there?
Oh, no, we just wanted to play the party down the street and then this one shitty club in town. There was an amazing music scene in Richmond that was very eclectic, but everyone was very supportive, and there would even be people in some weird art rock band who also played in a salsa band, and that's just giving you an extreme example, but we just wanted to be respected in our scene, and Richmond at the time had a reputation for touring bands would come play, and the Richmond crowds would just stand with their arms crossed, staring at them, undoubtedly in their heads going, I could do that better. And that was kind of the mentality we came up in. We're like, holy shit, we have got to rehearse. We've got to be good. We can't just go out there and half-ass it, because everyone in this small town is going to be there looking at us, and they're incredibly judgmental assholes. I mean that lovingly. And that was the scene that we were concerned with. And there were some amazing bands that came out of that. A band called Breadwinner. There's a band called Slang Louse that no one's ever heard, but Breadwinner is, I think it's on the iTunes. Guar. There's a band of Veil from Richmond. There's still a pretty vibrant artistic and musical scene here in Richmond.
Yeah, it seems like every region on the East Coast, like Tampa's the death metal capital of the world, Massachusetts is the metalcore capital, New York is the hardcore capital, and Richmond, I mean, you guys have all different genres coming out of there.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're a very small town, but we've got a great mix of people who are artistically minded.
Definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Lamb of God you would like to promote for the new album cycle? I mean, when, this whole virus that shall not be named is away?
Just be kind to each other. Everybody's struggling. Let's get through this and back to heavy metal.
Yeah. As soon as this is over, just mark my words, every single show is going to be sold out everywhere.
And it's going to be fucking insane inside because people have so much pent-up energy that they need to get out.
I'm ready. I'm just going to leave my apartment, and New York City's going to be like Ozfest, all 5 boroughs.
People just partying, smoking, drinking in the streets.
There you go. People do that anyway, even under quarantine. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, let's hope for a better tomorrow and get through this.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you so much, John. Everybody, John Campbell of Lamb of God. New album coming out June. Be sure to pick it up then when it lasts forever. And we'll see you next time on Heavy New York.